You just mentioned the rentier society, and the other concept that I wanted to pin down was rent. And so, how does rent differ in principle from other forms of income, like profit or wages?
So the entire focus of classical political economy, from the physiocrats to Adam Smith to Ricardo and Malthus to John Stuart Mill to Marx to Thorstein Veblen, was a value and price theory. They realized that not all prices for goods and services or for assets were actually had cost value. That rent was the excess of the price over and above the actual cost of production. It was imposed on the economy, just like debt and finance was imposed on the economy. Property ownership in the form of a hereditary landlord class. The heirs of the Nordic Northmen who conquered England, who conquered France, and assigned themselves land rent, were basically for 800 years burdening the economy with land rent. And the entire political focus of classical economics was to get rid of the fact that there was a landlord class, that anybody who occupied a building or lived in it or owned it had to pay rent to this hereditary landlord class that didn't play any productive role at all, that made money in their sleep. So, and that's what John Stuart Mill, the terminology he used to describe the landlord. A landlord is a rent recipient who makes money in his sleep without working. So rent is a payment to either a landlord or a monopolist, or to a mineral miner or oil company, or to a bank or in a financial institution that doesn't play any role in production at all. Well, if you have a class of rentiers, of landlords and monopolists, whose price does not reflect any necessary cost of production, that's economic rent. And more, the what is called GDP, or national income, does not take the form of wages and profits made by producing goods and services by industrial companies. It takes the form of economic rent, mainly land rent. Most of the increase in the cost of housing and commercial property in the United States is the rising site value of the land that's inflated by credit, whatever a bank will lend. It defines the price. Monopoly rent, you're having even the public, the mass media in America, called profit inflation. What they mean by profit inflation is when a company, a monopoly, will decide simply to raise prices because there's no competition, nothing to stop it. So this is reported as profits, but it's really rent. The problem is that since about 1890, really for the last 130 years, the economic statistics have stopped reporting rent. The landlords fought back, and the bankers backed the landlords in fighting back. And the anti-classical, anti-regulatory, anti-government approach to economics said there is no such thing as unearned income. I give all of the citations from John Bates Clark and other people in my book, Killing the Host, but there's the denial in modern neoclassical economics that all income is earned, all wealth is earned, and if somebody's a billionaire, they've made it by earning it, by playing a productive role in the economy. There's no concept in the national income accounts of rentier income. Everything is counted as profit or providing a service. For instance, if you may wonder when right today, if you look at the statistics, you find people falling behind in their credit card accounts, and their credit card interest goes up from the normal 19 to 23% interest charge to over 30%. And if you want to know where did this increase? How will the national income account treat this? Penalties. And credit card companies are making more money on penalties than they're actually making in interest. Well, all of that is counted in the national income accounts under providing financial services. It's a service when you increase the penalty on depositors. This is the kind of craziness that you get when they won't acknowledge that the phenomenon of economic rent is unearned income whose payment becomes a cost of living and a cost of doing business and a cost to companies that have to pay labor to pay various forms of economic rent. But it's not part of the production. So the statement that American GDP is growing overlooks the fact that the actual product is tapering off or shrinking. And all this, what they call this growth, it's largely the growth of the wealthiest 10% that are making their money through rent extraction. It's an extraction activity, a zero-sum activity. The money that the financial sector or the landlord or the monopolist gets is not adding to the product. It's a transfer payment from the consumer or the renter or the debtor to the rentier at the top. So our economic statistics pretend to be empirical, but they're not describing how the world really works at all. They're describing a kind of parallel universe.
Well, hopefully I don't have the numbers wrong, but I believe that a few minutes ago you said that in much of the 20th century, the structure of the economy in the United States was shifting back to a mode from before the 18th century and earlier. And this, of course, suggests that something else was going on in the 19th century when the Western world was also still capitalist. And people typically use the word capitalism, I think, as if it's a univocal concept. And I don't know it. Capitalism.
No.
Right.
No.
Right.
Nobody. The word capitalism was developed by the German Werner Sombart.
Good. I was going to say that I don't know if this stems from the origin of the word, where it was just meant to reflect that some take capital from others, or that some
capital was used, but not cap. Nobody turned the idea of capital into capitalism.